Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Teachers Lounge Talk Show. I am so happy to be back on the makeshift mothership. Gotta be very careful when I say that. Known as WHPR TV 33. I'm your host, Mrs. Piper, and we're virtual. We're Zooming, we're virtual. This is our new normal. We're still trying to get used to it. So bear with us. Whatever happens in the background happens in the background. We may have audio problems, whatever. We're just going to go with it today because, we got to go with life. This is the new normal as we see. So how are you, Candace?
I'm doing good. So it's your favorite reading specialist, Candace Williams, the founder of Irby Education. How are you guys feeling today?
Donovan? Pretty good. I'm Donovan Gardner, lead special education teacher of Mason Academy.
And it is my pleasure to introduce to you our very special guest this evening. He is from Teach 313. We're going to find out more about that. His name is Quan Neloms. Am I correct with that last name?
Quan Neloms.
No, I've been trying.
Yeah.
Say it again, Neloms.
Neloms. Yeah, that's fine.
I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not.
Yeah, nah, you're not.
Yeah.
You're not.
So how are you, Quan? Can I call you Quan?
Yeah, Quan, please.
All right. Quan, how are you? We're going to get started. Quan,
great.
how have you been surviving COVID?
Oh man, just it's a new phase of of how to interact with people or interact with work. So like you guys just said, we're adapting, and hopefully we're able to get back to some type of normal interactions with one another. So
yeah, I so agree. Now, you are from Teach 313. Can you please tell our audience, tell us, what is Teach 313?
Teach 313 is really it's not a organization as much as it is an endeavor to recruit more teachers to Detroit. And so by recruiting teachers to Detroit, they try to make Detroit the most appealing place possible for teachers to come. So by providing incentives such as discounts, such as support. Also, I'm an ambassador for Teach 313, so also stipends are also given out for those who are ambassadors. And all ambassadors simply does is go out and just really talk about their experiences as being an educator and why Detroit would be an ideal place for those who are interested in being an educator to come.
Okay. So, Quan, one thing that I know for sure is that during COVID, teachers on social media, they have definitely came out of the woodworks and they found ways to connect with each other. I know that I've been talking to teachers all across this, the country. So how are you guys using social media to leverage bringing more teachers to come towards Detroit?
Yeah, so they have been doing like virtual meetups, virtual. We were supposed to have an event in, I believe it was in May or June. Every year they have an event where they bring in people from around the country, from around the state, from around the city to see what Detroit schools have to offer and what Detroit as a city has to offer. So we definitely had to do that virtually, and then also on a monthly basis providing support and providing just fun activities for teachers to do. Whether it's through, I know one of the events was Eddie B had a Zoom concert for teachers that teachers were able to attend for free. It was also they have issues are for teachers, and they had like a virtual what do they call it, a virtual like cocktail hour where teachers got a chance to kind of relax and
Like
talk with each
hour.
other. So yeah, like a happy hour, and they're having things on a week, on a monthly, and some on a weekly basis to really still kind of offer that support to teachers.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody, we're having a little technical thing. Excellent. Now I'm just curious, Quan. You went online like everyone else. You went virtual in March. Am I
Indeed.
correct?
Yeah.
How was that experience for you?
So, I mean, for me, I mean, it's definitely the type of person I am. You know, I definitely, and I think most teachers, they definitely want to have that face to face. You know, that's how we are. You know, we're high touch. You know, interactive things like that. So it really, and just for me personally, it was challenging because not being able to. I mean, I'm not in the classroom per se now. I'm in the role of a school counselor now. For the past 2 years, I've been a school counselor. So really trying to, that was real news. Trying to really do my counseling duties. Even students and parents who requested, students be taken through the therapeutic process, that, doing that virtually was definitely new. It was interesting. It was definitely not the ideal situation, but, definitely had to adapt. So utilizing everything from Zoom to Teams, Microsoft Teams, phone calls. I've used other things such as GroupMe to really kind of reach out to parents without having to call them, text. I was able to really get more responses from text than I did from actual phone calls. And then really I did a lot of home visits as well, not necessarily going into the house and everything, but definitely dropping off materials at the homes as well. So it was, definitely, this was more of a survival thing, adapting. So, that's what it really was. I mean, first, of course, earlier on, it was harder than, it became easier as we went on though.
So what's your main concern approaching this school year?
So yeah, the main concern is that, just across our city, I mean, so what's right now, I think what we've seen is that the success and the education of our children is too daunting of a task for teachers to handle by themselves, and it's never been, even before COVID, it's never been, oh, it's all on teachers, although that might have been the perception, like, oh, it's the teacher's fault. But I think one of the things that the pandemic has shown us is that, this is everybody's issue. This is everybody's job for the success and the education of our kids. And I think that with the pandemic, we've seen, just around the city, we've seen people step up to provide things for families. Parents are deputized educators at this point, and just all sectors of our community coming together for the success of our students. And so my main concern is that if we do go back to a sense of normalcy, I don't want to lose that spirit of collective work towards, and I think that, sometimes it takes something like this to bring us all together. But I hope that, when we go back, we keep those things that we've learned, the importance of family, the importance of community, and then also knowing that education isn't something that just has to live at a school building. It's it's something that can thrive, every place our kids are. So whether they're at home, whether they're at the, in the streets, whatever, education is something that lives outside and inside of school building.
And so just speaking to that, right? Because immediately what I think about is the stigma that people have when it comes to being in education, especially when we're talking about working in an urban environment. So how is it that Teach 313 is able to change that stereotype and change the stigma that people have when it comes to teaching in urban communities? How is it that you guys are able to kind of cultivate a culture or an idea that, hey, we need you here, this is why it's important? How do you convince that person who is a little more so, no, I'd rather teach in the suburbs or teach out of state?
Yeah. So, I mean, Teach 313 does a great job of telling the stories of teachers, and so I think that's the biggest thing, is that nobody else can recruit or make the case for being an educator better than a teacher. And so I think that that's, one of the more important things is that we allow educators to tell their stories, first of all, but also for them to be able to put their ideas into practice, have that support to put their ideas into practice. So as an ambassador, I was one of the first group of ambassadors. I had an idea of like, listen, we need teachers, but we also need more Black men to be involved in education as well. And so, I had an idea like this is what we need to do to recruit Black men, and so they rallied behind it, so although it was my idea, I had the support of Teach 313, and they was able to put resources behind it. And so that's one of the things that I think that's a positive about Teach 313 is that, they show that, teachers matters, the ideas, the visions, the work that teachers do, if you allow them and give them the resources to really, they can really make effective change within that sphere of influence. So,
Listening to your answer, and especially speaking of recruiting Black male teachers, I know in my building, there is probably 2 male teachers, Black male teachers in my building, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do you think Black males do not want to go into education?
I think that for the most part, so let me ask you a question. When did you know that you wanted to be a teacher?
My parents were both teachers. So
Okay.
I kind of had no choice. I like to read, and I was kind of one of those precocious kids. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted. So my parents said, we're going to tell you what you're going to do since you don't know. And that's how. And thank God they did, because I embraced it and I love it. So my mom was an English teacher, and so
Okay. So
Yeah.
so I think that what ends up happening is that when it comes to Black men, that's not something that we're told at a young age that you could do. Hey, you ever thought about being a teacher? I've never heard that, and we are in school at the same amount of time. We spent 12 years in school, we're surrounded by other teachers, but you will find it where, Black men are never approached like, hey, have you ever thought about being a teacher? And so I wasn't approached with that, although again, I went through several career days when I was in school. I was surrounded by teachers, counselors and all that stuff, but they never said, hey, you ever thought about being a teacher? It was everything else outside of being an educator. And so I wasn't approached with being a teacher until I was in college. And I was like, dang, I never thought about that.
what did they? I'm curious. What did they think?
So I was I volunteered actually. So I mean, this is a lot. I'll make it short, but I was raised by the city of Detroit. When people say Detroit raised me, Detroit really did raise me. I am living proof of what happens when the community rallies around these young people. And so my parents were definitely a great influence in my life. But then, when I wasn't in my parents' care, there was a program called Project Adapt at the Northfield Activity Center. Now, this program was ran by older people, and they were not like real young. I mean, they were young people, but the main group were like, older people, but they were young. They were older Black women, and they poured so much into us. I mean, when I say they poured into us, I'm talking about financially, all that stuff. It literally, I started at the age of 15, and it changed the whole trajectory of my life. And so some of the things that they would do, we would go, they would pay us to go out of town. Like by the time I was 17 years old, I had been all over the eastern seaboard of the United States, all over the South Midwest. They took us to Black Men Think Tank every year in Cincinnati. By the age of 17, I had heard everybody from Dyson to Sharpton to Naeem Akbar to Milana Karinga, Juwanza Kinjufu. I heard all those guys speaking, and, when we come back, like I say, they paid us to go. They said, only thing you got to do is pay. We're going to take you to a Black-owned library, and you got to buy a book with the money that we gave you. And so, I started my library as a teenager, with them. They taught us about health. They taught us about meditation, spirituality, all that stuff, right? And one of the requirements was that we had to give back. And so it was a no-brainer for me at the age of 18. I volunteered at a school. I volunteered at Peter Vito. So as a college student, I volunteered at Peter Vitar School, and they had me there as a like a behavior interventionist. And so pretty much the boys was getting in trouble in middle school, they were sending to me. I had like a little office and everything. So, you know, I had such a great time. Like this school was adopted by the local church. This was in Brightmoor. And so, I mean, this church was situated right next to the Smith Housing Project, where all the students pretty much came from. And so I had an office at the school and I had an office at the church. And so I would see those students at school and I would see those same students when they went home too, you know, when I had my evening hours at the church. And so we did things inside the Smith Housing community, and like that what I saw, that relationship they had, you know, with that church, and like it was so complete that when the principal was absent, the youth pastor at the church would be the acting principal, you know, substitute principal.
Wow.
So just seeing all that stuff, and I was like, yo, this is like, I've never seen anything like this before. And I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And so the youth pastor said, he came to me and said, hey, have you ever thought about being an educator? And I was like, I never thought of it, but right now I think I need to look more into it. And so like, I mean, it is just that. Then the teacher, it was a teacher there, Mr. Carl Brownlee. He's a good friend of mine to this day, but as an 18-year-old, I volunteered in his classroom. And then once I made the decision to become a teacher, I did my student teaching inside of his class as well. You know, so he went from being somebody I volunteered to him being my mentor teacher to us having a long-term friendship all this time. You know, him showing me the ropes even still to this day. And so, you know, so my route to it is that, you know, I benefited from people who lived in the city of Detroit, some educators, some just volunteers. And then I had the opportunity, the doors were open for me to volunteer. My road to education was as a volunteer. I volunteered at a school. And while I was volunteering, my experience was so amazing. I said, I want more of this in my life. You know, this is, you know, so I remember when I made the decision, I changed from material science engineering to education. And everybody called me stupid. Why are you doing that? You know, but, you know, it turned out to be like the best decision I ever could have made.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. That's a long answer.
No.
I enjoyed listening. No, that was really good.
Yeah, long story short, I was asked as I was volunteering at a school. The doors opened for me to volunteer at the school, and while I was volunteering, somebody confronted me and asked if I ever thought about being a teacher.
Yeah, and you know what, like speaking of the whole like Black men and the impact that they have when they are, you know, educators within a classroom. I was actually looking up this statistic that I saw on someone's Instagram page, is that he said that basically like there's actually data that shows that when a child has a Black male teacher, how it changes the trajectory of their academic success. And this was the first time I actually saw data behind it. So I was looking for it because I wanted to recite the exact data. But this is why it's so important for us to be able to, you know, rebuild that community that you're talking about, you know, Brightmoor and having the church and being able to go into the schools. How do we get back to that community? Because I feel that like there's a loss in that community aspect that we once used to have in the city. And I think that if we get back to that, then we can address the trauma that, you know, causes a lot of children to not be able to be academically successful, and just kind of bringing everything back together as a whole. What do you think about that?
I think one of the biggest things to really get back to, you know, community is, you know, you really have, I think honestly people have to be challenged. You got to put that, just like how I was asked, have you ever thought about being a teacher? It's like a lot of men really don't know that that's an option. And I would say that even if it's not a teacher, if you can convince a Black man in particular that you can volunteer and be of some assistance to a school, to a community, to children, and let them know how they can do it, I think you will find, you know, in my endeavors of recruiting Black men, my tagline is to teach, mentor, and volunteer. Because I know that everybody might not want to be a teacher, but everybody has to be able to do something. Like I know there's certain throughout history. I'm a history teacher, so I mean, throughout history and different civilizations, there was it was expected that every man who was able would be involved in the military, right, for a certain season of their life. And I believe that needs to be the same thing, expectation for us, that every man, a part of your lifestyle, it needs to be that if you're able, that you need to serve the youth in some type of way, whether it's as, you want to be a teacher, yes, a mentor, volunteer. And the volunteerism doesn't have to look like, I'm in there, like, you don't have to be in there being a behavior specialist like me, like I was, intervening with young men, but it may be that, hey, I can't come there during the day, but I can come in the evenings and paint a classroom, or I can provide meals, or I can provide money for books or something like that. Everybody has to be on the hook to do something,
Right.
because what happens is that, as a teacher, and one of the things that I had to realize as a teacher is that you burn out quick, because there's really, you're trying to, as teachers, we're altruistic, but it's actually kind of selfish, because we like, with me, it was selfish because I didn't trust anybody else. Like, I just do it all myself. Like, all right, I don't want to worry about people saying no, or I'm going to do it myself. And so you do it yourself so much that not only you get burnt out, but you start resenting other people. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so I found the greatest, appreciation for people and for the profession when I allow people to assist. First of all, being humble enough to ask for help. That ask is everything, right? To ask for help and then to sit back and receive it. And so I've seen it sounds simple, but it's a hard thing to do, to ask for help, because we're so used to, maybe people letting us down, or thinking that they can't do it, or they don't really care. And really, if you ask 100 people, you're going to get somebody to bite. And so I think that, so not only are you getting assisted by people assisting, helping out, but you never know. Like with me, you might spark another person to be like, what, I want to be an educator. You know what I'm saying? And it might not have to look like, all right, this is what a teacher does, blah, blah. It can be like, yo, I'm inside of the class, because, every teacher's approach to teaching is different.
Right.
I'll say it. I went through college education, but I learned how to teach in the field. You know what I'm saying? I knew what to, you know what I'm saying? Like, they prepared, I understood the pedagogy, all that terms like that, but there's some things that I did not learn in the college education. Not a knock against them, but just the way that we are is that, we come with our, it's our personal charisma.
So Quan, you know what? I wanted to also get Donovan's perspective about this conversation about Black men in education. So Donovan, what inspired you to go into education?
Well, my mom is a teacher, and I'm from a single family home. My mother raised me and my sister, so a lot of times I would go to work with my mom, and I knew she made pretty good money, and at that particular time, I think she was making about 80,000. So when Mr. Quan was saying that he left his previous college course to go into teaching, I'm sure everybody was telling him he was crazy because of the money. Because the rumor is teachers don't make any money, but I kind of knew that $80,000 a year was pretty good. So that's what my mom's take home was. It was 80,000, and I don't think people knew that. So when I finally did get to college, I was just there, like Leslie, like they made you go to school. You didn't have a choice. That's kind of how I was. I didn't have a choice. I had to go to college, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was working a job that I wasn't happy at. I hated going to work. When I finally quit that job, I got a job at a daycare center, and I was the Quest teacher. Quest teacher, that was like the latchkey teacher. Whenever the kids would get picked up from school and come to the daycare center, they would be like the middle schoolers or the older elementary kids, and I would work with them. and I had no anxiety about going to work. Well, I said, well, I can do this every day. I like being around these kids, feeding off their energy, and just being around them was interesting and fun, because when I wasn't working or I got the classroom settled and we were just chilling, I'd enjoy listening to them talk. So I think the importance of having a Black male teacher, I know in my case is, versus another cultural teacher, is that we understand our children's culture. I understand what my kids are going through at home more so than a teacher from another race. So that kind of cracks down on behavior problems in my room, or kids getting sent to the office, because another teacher might send the kids to the office for something that I would feel is petty. Of course, I wouldn't say that in front of the kid, but I would be thinking to myself, well, geez, that was a petty reason to send that boy to the office. All he said was this, or all they did was that. And by me having two sons, I'm able, and my kids are older now. They're older than the students that I have. One son just graduated from Cass. My second and my youngest son is a junior at Renaissance. So they're older than the kids that I teach. So for me, I can see the impact of the statistics that Candace was talking about, because I lived those statistics. Parents have came back and said, oh, Mr. Gardner, you're amazing. You're the best teacher he ever had. And it's really about communication. When kids have somebody that they can identify with and they feel is cool, that's when you got them, like a rapper.
Right.
That cool teacher that has I can get their attention.
Let me ask you this question too. Someone said, what grade were you in when you had your first Black male teacher? I was in 3rd grade. It wasn't a good experience because he didn't want to be there. But what grade were you in, Quan, when you had your first Black male teacher?
My first Black male teacher, I was in 9th grade. Mr. Rambo at Draft Mechanics. Yep.
Okay. What about you, Donovan?
Ooh, the first Black male teacher I had was junior year in high school, Mr. Petty.
What about you, Leslie?
Mine was Mr. Ed. Mr. Knight, we were allowed to call our teachers by their first name. And I just couldn't, so I called him Mr. Ed. And he taught math. I had him in the 10th grade.
10th grade, wow. So on average, it sounds like more so high school, middle school.
Yeah.
So just imagine that negative impact where already, predominantly most children are coming from a single parent household, being raised by grandma, auntie, mama, sister, and it takes you all of this time to get your experience to be educated by a Black male. And sometimes I noticed that there's like this great divide because they bump heads at times. Donovan, have you experienced that before with some of your male students?
Black male teachers?
No, I'm saying as far as you being an educator, do some of your like Black students, the boys, kind of give you a hard time?
Not me. Kids are going to be kids. I've had challenging kids, more challenging than others. But I can't say that it was because I was Black. If I had a problem in my classroom and somebody had to be removed, this kid was just wild all across the board. It wasn't a me thing. So all my personal experience, even with a troubled child, when they calmed down, it was still a good relationship between us because I know they're just a kid and they're acting out for whatever reason, but it was never we're gonna challenge Mr. Gardner because he's Black, or maybe he's too nice to us. I kept an even balance of niceness and meanness. Like there's days where I come in and I slam my door shut and I get to saying some things loudly that I shouldn't be saying, but that's to get them to straighten up. Then after I've gotten them to straighten up, I'm the same teacher that'll buy you pizza every Friday.
Yeah.
I'm the same teacher that we'll put on a movie and watch it sometime together. But so it was a good equal balance between putting my foot down and being understanding.
And I'm curious, Candace, we shared our teacher stories, what got us into education, and we didn't get yours. What brought you into education, Colin?
Well, so for me, nobody was an educator in my family, nobody. But here's a weird story. Now, I'm going to be brief. So my mother, when she was a teenager, she used to babysit for this teacher during the summer. As the teacher worked in the summer at Cody, my mother would watch her daughter over the summer. Her daughter was named Candace, and my mother always wanted to become a teacher, but she felt like she wasn't academically strong enough to, go to college and whatnot. She had her own insecurities and whatnot. So she told herself that if I ever have a daughter, I would name her Candace because of the teacher that she used to babysit the daughter. So lo and behold, here I am. She named me Candace, and I became an educator. And so for me, it was weird because I didn't even go to school yet in preschool. Well, before preschool, I just used to love to educate. And I used to play school, although I never been to school yet. And so I just had this burning desire to become a teacher. And I think that the universe somehow, with the desire that my mother had and her watching Candace when she was younger, here I am today, Candace, the educator. Isn't that weird?
Man, listen, everyone's got a story.
Yeah, that's the story.
And all of it is interesting, whether Donovan and I were forced to go, Quan was kind of ushered into going, you were kind of named into going. I think it was all our plights are just such interesting little vignettes, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I hope, can y'all see this? Can you see my screen right now?
Not yet.
Not yet? All right, I'm gonna try it again. And I'm gonna hit the share button. This is what I go through when I'm in school. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
All right. Now this is from Randy Weingarten. I'm gonna tell you why I'm bringing it up, and I'm really thinking about you, Quan, and Teach 313. And people were talking about asking teachers to subsidize protective equipment, such as masks and sanitizers. I'm reading it. And it's a demonstration of the extent of the exploitation teachers face. We cannot continue to do more or with less. So we're looking at the urban and the suburban schools, rural. These are the teachers that have to come out of their pocket, all right, with school supplies. So I'm curious, Quan, as a Teach 313 ambassador, if you have teachers that choose to go back face to face and maybe the supplies run out, will you encourage them? Okay, well, why don't you just dig in your pocket and buy them for the kids because you're so dedicated? I'm just really curious about that. How would you advise them?
I mean, just as as an educator, period. Just outside of Teach 313, I mean, it's absurd that we would have to do that, but we know that we're gonna do it anyway. It's just how we are, as educators. So we've all we've all had to spend our own money on certain things. Yeah, we had to spend our own money on lots of things, and I mean, and then I know certain stories personally of teachers who paid for a lot more than just PPE equipment and stuff. So I think that's part of the goal of making Detroit the best place for teachers, is that showing you that you value it. And that's one of the ways to show that you're valued, is like, look, this is stuff that we do, anyway, just because the type of work that we're in, our heart is all in it. You know what I'm saying? Because if our heart went in it, we wouldn't be in it, And so I think that, it's definitely absurd that we would have to, first of all, be asked to pay for it. But secondly, there's definitely need to be at least some recognition, definitely need to be some type of compensation. But, I wouldn't tell a teacher like, no, don't do it, when I know that then regardless, we would do stuff like that anyway. You know. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that, but
Nah. Nah.
yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion because me being DFT, you know what I mean? I think my response would be a little different. Like, oh, they don't have it. Well, let's go to the principal. Let's figure out what they're going to do about that. Because our salaries have already been attacked.
That's right.
Right, and our teachers are already working with cut salaries. So just the idea that we may be asked to subsidize, and it's just not from Randy Weingarten. This is our person, This kind of rattled me, and I just wanted to share that with you. Does anyone else want to make a comment on this?
Well, go ahead, Donovan.
Well, just real brief without getting too political.
Get political, Donovan.
If Mike Duggan can allow investors to use our rainy day fund to build Little Caesars Arena, no teacher should ever have to come out of their pocket for PPE.
Yeah.
But that's all I have to say because I'll go off.
What about you, Candace?
Well, my thing is that when it comes to education, we know that it's very honorable and we do it out of love. But at the same time, we have to make things make sense. I'm pretty sure that you don't have attorneys buying their own copy and paper to print out documents for their clients. I'm pretty sure that you don't have doctors going and buying their own masks for themselves and the nurses. So I think that we need to just change the way that we look at education and create that whole entire paradigm shift. And I think that that's what COVID is actually doing right now.
Amen. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this. All right. So can you see me in my back?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much for, just entertaining me with that. When things like that come around and they're asking us to dig into our pockets, it just raises an eyebrow for me. And I want to get everybody's opinion on it, So just going back to Teach 313. Now, I'm curious, Quan, has any of your members, do you encourage them to join the union, the DFT union?
Yeah, so remember, it's not a DFT is. Teach 313 is not like a membership-based type of program. It's really, like I said, endeavor to kind of really give teachers resources to show that they're valuable. So there's a lot of things that go on with that. So teachers are free to make their own choice. I'm a part of DFT. Even before I was an ambassador for Teach 313, I used to serve on the executive board for DFT as well. And so,
thank you for your service.
Yeah. So now, thank you. So the union is very important. Now, that's one thing I am a product of. My father worked for for 45 years. My mother is a union steward for DMC, and so definitely, in my opinion, if you're in Detroit and if you are a teacher, you definitely want to be a part of the union because, regardless of what your stance is on the union, think about what, school districts, school boards would try to get away with if they didn't have a union in place to kind of protect its workers.
And I got to ask this quickly. Are there any special qualifications to become a member of Teach 313? Do you all just have to be a teacher?
Yeah.
You have to be certified?
Yeah, so what do you say, a member, or you mean an ambassador? If you want to be an ambassador, you definitely have to be selected through selection process, fill out applications and things like that. When I became a Teach 313 ambassador, I had to send in a video, it's not like a 30-second video, but I was like with the first group. As far as a member, if you want to take advantage of some of the resources that Teach 313 have, you just have to be a teacher. Like a lot of resources come from the business community. Like I was able to buy a house and utilize one of the incentives with Rocket Mortgage that was specifically for teachers, So I didn't, they didn't know I was in Teach 313 or not. I was just a teacher, you know what I'm saying? So you don't necessarily have to be in Teach 313 to benefit from those, but they work, behind the scenes to try to make sure that all of these resources are available for teachers.
I think it's so important too, because for so long, no one gave teachers a thing. You know, so I
Yeah.
think it's great that there's a program for teachers with incentives. And I'm aware of that Rocket Mortgage program. I know that
Yeah.
Mayor Duggan talked about that several times.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think, you know, you say with COVID, I think, you know, as teachers, we're not considered to be important, or, you know, we were trying to take more and more away from teachers as students were at home, and as parents had to be deputized as the primary means of educating their students, their children. You know, people see that, you know, the job of an educator is very important, you know. So, you know, so like I told you, that was my fear, like, you know, what's going to happen. I mean, we can kind of see the tides turning a little bit as you get certain districts that's fighting to go back face to face. Like, I remember I was walking, and where was I? I was somewhere, and I overheard some people talking about, teachers being lazy. I was at the grocery store. I'm like, you know, say teachers being lazy, not want to go. I said, yo, it's not, you know, it's just not safe right now. You know, and as we hear about schools opening up and then closing quickly because of, you know, we don't want to be in that type of situation. So it's definitely, you know, as we see those tides turning, hopefully people remember during those months of pandemic how important they thought teachers were. So,
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
So, I don't
so,
want to.
oh, go ahead, Leslie.
Go ahead, sweetie. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to kind of piggyback off of that. Is that overall, what is your thoughts on the battle between virtual and face to face?
I think it's safe to be virtual right now. It's the safest option. You know, I do understand why some teachers want to be face to face, and why parents want to have some of their students face to face. As far as with teachers, you know, virtual definitely not what's up. Virtual is not ideal, but I do think that that, you know, the safest option right now is to be virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know the last minute and a half of this show, I picked virtual as well. We're probably gonna be talking about this next week, but I picked virtual as well. What did you pick, Henry? If I can ask, if it's not too personal.
Wait, I'm sorry. I knew that last thing you said.
Yeah, did you pick personal or face to face?
So my district is going virtual.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. But like I said, that in West Bloomfield, you could choose between sending your child virtual or doing the hybrid. And I decided to do the hybrid, which is 4 days a week, 3 hours a day. And with all of the precautions that they took, I feel safe sending my kids to school. They wouldn't even let Channel 7 News or Channel 4 News come into the building. Parents are not allowed in the building, no visitors, no matter if you're pressed or not. And so just like thinking about everything, I said that it's a go.
Donovan, we're going to get your opinion on face-to-face versus virtual next week, because we have about 30 seconds left. And in that time, I want to thank Quan Neloms for being our special guest. Quan, thank you so much. I loved hearing about your story. And listen, stay blessed this school year. And I hope I see you on the other side. Hope I see everybody on the other side. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, God bless you.
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping next week to have a teacher on from Georgia, and because they already started back, and I'm really curious about what's going on down there. So thank you so much, everyone. We will see you next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
All right, see you later.
Bye-bye. All right, so I'm going to hit the stop record button. Let me see. Stop recording.
Oh, I can smell that. I made some fried chicken for dinner, y'all, and I can smell it coming.